So should companies be profiting off the coronavirus? Robert Weissman, the president of Public Citizen, drops by to talk about that with me. I think you'll find it fascinating. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Robert Weissman, our old buddy, the president of Public Citizen. Citizen.org is the website, and you can tweet him at public_citizen or at Rob_Weissman. Robert, welcome back to the program.
Hey, it's great to be with you.
Thank you for joining us. I am reading stories that Trump is an investor in some of these private pharmaceutical companies that might be manufacturing coronavirus test kits, or that another. And this is the second that apparently that's from his disclosure forms from 2 years ago. I don't know if it's still the case. And then the other is these. It may or may not be a conspiracy theory, but or an explanation that the reason why, South Korea has tested, 180,000 people, and we have tested, we don't know because the CDC doesn't publish it anymore, but probably fewer than 1,000 in the United States, is that it's Reaganomics, essentially. It's this neoliberal belief that government can't do anything right, so you just, you don't do anything until the disaster is so great that there's an opportunity for a private corporation to make a lot of money, and then you wait for the private corporation to jump in and fix things. This is has been sold to us in a whole bunch of other areas over the years, and in many, I think, kind of a libertarian ideology. What's going on with all this? And what are you guys looking into in these contexts of, instead of helping the middle class or the poor, is Trump trying to help himself and his buddies?
Yeah, well, this is obviously a really big deal, and it's going to get a lot bigger. And so there's layers of the issue. I think on the testing side, the real problem was incompetence and blunders at the Centers for Disease Control, which I think reflects bad leadership by the head of the CDC, who was a bad appointment by the president. And also something that no one can really explain, which is why the CDC insisted it had to develop its own kits rather than relying on ones that have been developed in other countries, including in South Korea, as you say. So that's public health, very significant. I don't think there's big profiteering going on in that space. At the other end of the spectrum, there is potentially a huge amount of money in a coronavirus vaccine. We've done some deep dives into who's been doing research on coronaviruses, and the answer is it's almost been done entirely by the U.S. government since 2002. The National Institutes of Health spent about $700 million on coronavirus R&D since SARS broke out in 2002, and very little done by the private sector. There are a few companies that are doing work in this space, but they are themselves relying on government grants. $700 million is a lot of money, but if you actually understand how the pharmaceutical companies count their claims when they say they're doing work on R&D, where they do all kinds of adjustments for the risk of failure and the cost of capital and counting lost interest rate and stuff like that, it would be at least 10 times that figure. So there's a lot of federal money that's gone in to coronavirus R&D work. We're going to get a vaccine. It's going to take a little while. But the question is, will that vaccine be licensed exclusively or given over as a monopoly to one company? And will the government pay the manufacturers of that vaccine, the cost of making it and some small profit, or are they going to let them charge monopoly prices? And we're very worried about how that's going to go.
Wasn't this an issue?
The Secretary of Health and Human Services has said, look, we really can't interfere with innovation. How can we put some reasonable price controls on it? And the answer is the innovation is all being done by the federal government anyway. So you're just talking about giving away monopolies for no purpose if you don't put some price controls and license non-exclusively.
Wasn't this an issue in the debate around this $8 billion piece of legislation to fund, a response to the coronavirus? And I believe that the Democrats in the House were trying to include language in that legislation that would prevent basically price gouging or crisis profiteering by pharmaceutical companies. Did that survive or not?
Yes, it was a part of the fight, and the answer is no, it didn't really survive. There is language in about trying to ensure reasonable and fair pricing, but it says the Secretary of Health and Human Services should use the authority that he already has to achieve this objective. So it doesn't add anything at all. and it includes some worrisome language that says, yeah, he should do that, but he should make sure he doesn't do anything to slow the development of a vaccine, which of course he shouldn't slow the development. But pharma will try to use that language as an excuse to block any efforts to control and maintain reasonable prices.
I understand, we're talking to Robert Weissman, the president of Public Citizen, Citizen.org. I understand that your organization has joined with 70 other organizations across the country, basically calling for Trump not to allow big pharma to profiteer on the coronavirus. What are the mechanisms available to us, to you as the president of this group and the other groups, to us, to people like me as just citizens, calling legislators, writing letters to the editor? What are the mechanisms available to us to try to either A, put some teeth into that, or B, if it has to be moral persuasion, do it effectively?
Yeah, well, I think the more we talk about it, the better it's going to be. And it is true that Secretary Alex Azar, the head of HHS, could solve this problem on his own if he were so inclined under his existing authority. It would be better if there was a congressional mandate, because I don't think we want to rely on the Trump administration. I'm hopeful, not certain, but I'm hopeful that it's going to go well. First of all, because it would be so outrageous to give away a monopoly in this situation and let price gouging take place that maybe just the public pressure will be sufficient to prevent it from happening. But second of all, it's not just a matter of sort of moral outrage or even justice or even the ability of any individual to get access to a vaccine. It's really about the public health need to make sure the vaccine is available to everyone. It just, the vaccine itself won't work as a public health intervention unless everybody can get it. And I think that's going to force even the Trump administration to make sure that we're not price gouged on this.
I know that vaccine companies that manufacture vaccines, pharmaceutical companies that manufacture vaccines, have a mind-boggling amount of liability limitation. They've got at law a lot of barriers to suing them or holding them responsible. The federal government has set up a vaccination. If you're damaged by a vaccine, the federal government compensates you. It's apparently to the tune of billions of dollars now. Does that have any impact on this? Are those laws things that are working or should be revisited?
Well, they'll be in place as background facts for this. It's a sort of separate question, but it's not completely unrelated. It is complicated because as you know, and as listeners know, there have been problems with vaccines, and you do want people people must be compensated, and you want the companies held responsible. On the other hand, absent the creation of a public manufacturing capacity, which would be a good thing, but which we don't yet, we don't currently have in place, we do need companies willing to manufacture.
Right.
I'm not sure the current system gets the balance so wrong. And in any case, I think for this immediate crisis, which is going to go on for a little while.
I guess I was thinking that if you're a company making a vaccine and you're rolling it out, and let's say it's a new measles vaccine or something, you can take years to do this. There's not a great deal of urgency, and you can test it on large swaths of the population, and you can see if it's if people who are 3 years old respond to it way differently than people who are 12 years old, or people who are, real prone to allergies, or, more reactive than those who aren't, et cetera, all those things. But this is slam, bam, thank you, ma'am. I mean, we're trying to get this thing out, in as little time as possible, probably a year and a half at the most. Odds are that it will have some side effects, or more side effects, or, than a normal vaccine, just because it's not so tested so much. I guess the subtext of my question was, are there adequate protections in place on the one hand, and on the other hand, protections for the vaccine manufacturers? On the other hand, are there adequate protections for us who might be getting the vaccine to know that it wasn't done too hastily? That there is some liability.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to, at the end of the day, we're going to have to rely on the government regulators to provide the assurances of safety. As weakened as the regulatory system is, the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control, I think that there's still a lot of really serious capacity and serious commitment to making sure that something is safe before it's rolled out for the general population. So I feel reasonably good about that. Mm-hmm. And you really would want, you want that decision to rest with government, with public health officials. You don't want the corporations making that decision, which I think is right. And moreover, although you want compensation for somebody who's injured, you don't want to rely on the compensation system as the mechanism to ensure safety. You actually just want to ensure safety.